Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of GM Philosophy Friday afternoon live stream call-in show to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Mr. Vincent's in the house. Hello, Mr. Vincent. Garrick is in the house. How's it going, Garrick? Austin Walker is in the house. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you're having a really good Friday. It's a really good Friday here. Fridays are a good day. Fridays are the beginning of the weekend. I do have a lot of work to do this weekend, but still, it's nice to live in that atmosphere of the weekend when you are very busy and you've been working all week. I'm going to post the call-in link down here in the chat if anybody wants to join in. Leslie Castle's Friday. That's what I'm talking about. That is the vibe. That is the vibe I'm looking for. It's a good Friday, too. I'm very grateful. My life has been going through a lot of challenges lately, but I am a student of gratitude. I'm a student of Stoic principles, and I believe very much in being grateful. I think that I have a lot to be grateful for. Fish Friday. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. For me, it's going to be brat Friday. I bought some brats. I'm going to cook some brats. I'm very excited about that. Let's put this link in here, the call-in link. Let me go to the official. Let me go so I can pin it here. But yeah, I'm a student of gratitude, and I believe that in life we should be grateful. We should be grateful for the good things. We can always count a lot of good things, and life could always be worse. I know that some people look down on that idea. They say, well, just because other people have worse problems than you, it doesn't make your problems invalid. And that's true. It does not. We all have subjectively difficult things that we go through. My things to me might seem very difficult. Your things probably seem very difficult to you. However, I do believe in the value of gratitude, because when we start making a list of things we're grateful for, we start to realize that there's a lot to be happy about. We start to realize that there's a lot that could be worse. We start to realize that life isn't just, a bunch of terrible things happening all the time. There's actually a lot of good that happens. I'm going to pin this in the top, the call-in link. If anyone wants to call in, that's what today is for. Humbleness. I think that humbleness is very important. I think humbleness is super important. And I think that wise people are humble. I think that they strive to be humble because we have to, at the end of the day, what's the real truth? I don't know a whole lot. I may know a little bit about some things, but I don't know a whole lot about much, right? In the span of the universe. So grateful for GMP. Thank you so much, Mr. Vincent. Happy to see you back from your journeys. I still hold out hope that there's some way I can talk you back into being able to find time to join the Barren Lands, but I know that you're busy and I know that there's things going on. Adventure Managers in the house. Hey, Adventure Manager, can you hear me?
I'm hearing like a weird echo.
I can hear you. Hey, chat, can you tell us if there's an echo? It might be local to you.
Oh no, it's the video. It's video playing into itself. That's weird.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, we should be good to go then. So what would you like to talk about? What do you have on the docket?
Oh, I was wondering how your party splitting was going. You mentioned how difficult it was.
Oh, you mean my the divorce and associated activities? Is that what you mean?
Kind of, yeah. You got to
Well,
divide the whole inventory and.
yeah. So here's the thing: is I shouldn't talk too much about details about it until it's all done. But here's what I will say. Here's what I can share. I can share that it is not a pleasant. It's not a pleasant thing. I am very, once again, grateful that, that situation could be a lot worse. I think that it's going to be okay. I think I'm going to make it. I think I'll make it through alive. I'm pretty sure. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, you didn't
I
split in a dungeon, so.
what's that?
Yeah, you didn't split up in a dungeon, so yeah, you should survive.
Well, yeah, no, that's true. But also, there's something to be said. There's something to be asked. Is our world not a dungeon in itself? I don't know. Um, do you subscribe to simulation theory at all?
No.
So
Our world is more of a sandbox, I'd say.
okay. Do you believe in? I'm sorry, I'm asking you some big questions. Do you believe in intelligent design? Like, do you believe that this world was designed by something, or it's just a product of natural processes?
Yes, it was designed by a higher power. Yeah.
I
There's a lot of intelligence to the design of our own bodies and everything else. So yeah, so there's definitely some higher power created everything.
okay. So by that logic, then it would stand to reason that maybe some parts of our life and world could be classified as a dungeon, but others are supposed to be safe zones, maybe. Um, so I guess that if you believe the world is just a naturally occurring phenomenon resulting from the randomness of the universe, then maybe it stands to reason that the whole world is potentially a dungeon, and the only safe spaces are the ones we build for ourselves. Do you have any do you have any thoughts about that?
It's like happiness. Some people just seem to be unable to be happy. So it's just, you can't force them to be happy. So, I mean, it's just it's complicated. It's up to the individual. So do you feel safe where you're at? Then the answer should be yes or no, and you find safety from there.
Yeah. I feel safe until I see skeletal soldiers coming through the door trying to run me out of it, right?
I mean, yeah, I feel unsafe going to Walmart. I bumped into like a couple of zombies the other day. I mean, they were people. I mean, he literally had his head like fixed permanently at a right angle almost, and he was just walking along. Or not, well, I guess he was walking. He's just bebopping along. He had his head fixed in a permanent direction, just ignoring everything on his left. I was like, oh gosh, I'm like, is his neck completely? I mean, looks like they failed the neck snap.
What? You didn't tell me you live in Springfield, Missouri. What?
No, I think it's Kentucky, Project Zomboid.
Oh no, it sounds just like my hometown. What you're describing, average trip to Walmart sounds about accurate. No, but okay. So happiness. Here's another thing. I think I see we're getting philosophical here.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I'm saying your feelings of safety, feelings of happiness, your general sense, it depends. I mean, you could be in a bunker underground and not feel safe. So there you go.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, so happiness. So here's the thing I noticed about happiness. Mr. Vincent says, um, every Walmart is a dungeon. I don't disagree.
They're becoming dungeons. Yes, I can
They're
agree.
becoming dungeons. It used to be a happy place for families. Now it's where the shamblers go. Um, Dungeons of 20 says a world of sadness where we fight for happiness. Oh, interesting. Okay. That's actually a very that's an existential take, I think would be the proper label.
Life is
But
what you make it, Iro.
life is what you may. Oh, Iro, Uncle Iro. We all need an Uncle Iro in our life. But so here's something I've observed about happiness, and tell me what you think about this. So I've noticed that there are two ways to think about happiness, really, when we boil it down. Happiness is either a choice that we pursue intentionally, or it's something we try to create with outside circumstances, right? And there is a spectrum there, so that those are not black and white things. We all do a certain number of those two things every day, but where do we fall on the spectrum? Here's my belief. I believe that if we go too far toward trying to seek outside circumstances to make us happy, this leads to complete chaos in life. Whereas if we intentionally seek happiness as a choice, like things like waking up, making a gratitude journal, looking on the bright side, choosing to um, choosing to let go of frustration and smile when maybe you don't feel like it all the time, kind of almost like fake it till you make it sometimes. I think that direction leads to more order in life, and it also leads to more control over our happiness. But I think a lot of people chase outside circumstances to try to create happiness. So like if they're not happy, and here's really the key, they blame everything around them and they try to change everything around them. But the other way is if I'm not happy, I'm going to look at myself and I'm going to say, I'm kind of making a choice not to be happy to a certain degree. That's the way I look at it. I believe that's the Stoic mindset. And the other way just leads to chaos, and I find often more suffering. Because if you give control of your happiness away to other people, other circumstances, other things, then what control do you have over it? You're going to have no control over it at the end of the day. Anyway, shabam. There's my little dissertation on happiness. That's how I think about happiness.
All good. But like you had mentioned, happiness is like an ongoing process. That is like a thing, kind of like you're forcing yourself to be happy. But there are also psychological or external factors too that determine happiness. Like right now, I don't have a desk, and I'm in like basically a white box room with nothing on my walls yet. And that got a little depressing at night. With just the glow of my monitor and like YouTube videos. I'm like, okay, I'm a little sad right now, and I turned on the light, and it made me feel a little better. It's just the yellow light helped a little. So.
Why are you moving? Oh, you are moving. You mentioned you were
Yes,
moving.
I have landing gear has yet to deploy fully, but we have landed. We have stopped moving technically.
Oh, okay. So you're there, but it's not done, basically.
Yeah, like I said, lack of a desk, lack of a computer, lack of wall art on the wall to make me happy. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I said some psychological things to be dampeners too. So it is partially the room's fault, and it's partially my own stupid fault for not decorating the walls yet, I guess. So.
Or maybe you just haven't had time or it hasn't been a high enough priority yet.
Yeah. So there's, like I said, so it's both external and internal. So yeah, I am happy. I tried to make myself a little happier. Turn on a light bulb. That helped a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Garrick
Oh,
says,
yeah, both.
when Bluetooth phones were very new in Walmart, I saw a shopper having a conversation about what to buy. Excuse me. But as I came closer, I saw that there wasn't a Bluetooth in either ear. I didn't know Garrick lived in Springfield, Missouri. No joke. Sounds like he's describing my local neighborhood market. Springfield is rough, man. Springfield's getting rough. Someday I want to move to Florida. I want to move to the beach. I want to live on the beach. I want to get that job. The guys who set up the chairs and umbrellas for people on the beach, like the people rent chairs and umbrellas from them. That's the business I want to be in someday. So someday, don't be surprised if GM Philosopher is on the beach renting out umbrellas by day and then doing D&D content by night. Just mind your business. GM Philosopher foresees that life. That sounds like a really fun life to me, renting out beach stuff to people. Well, anyway, Adventure Manager, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for talking. Thanks for chatting. I'm going to bounce you out to make room for another caller if anyone wants to call in.
But there can be up to 10 people in here.
There can be 10 people.
Okay, you can kick me if you want.
Would you like to stay?
I would. I was gonna say you've already got. You think you'd be more of a lifeguard? You got that beard and everything rocking, and get a nice tan to go with it.
I have saved a person from drowning before. One person was getting swept down river, a kid, and I pulled them out. They couldn't swim, and I pulled them out. I wasn't even on lifeguard duty. I can swim pretty good. Me and my friends used to wrestle underwater when I was a kid. All summer long, we go to the pool at the country club, and we would just like beat each other up and wrestle underwater and do flips off the diving board. I feel like I've gotten very comfortable swimming underwater because of that. All right.
Yeah,
well,
you got a strong swimmer skill.
Strong swimmer skill, not fast. Strong, not fast. All right.
That's Michael Phelps, I guess.
Yeah, Michael Phelps is fast. Gold medalist fast. All right, Adventure Manager and me, we're going to keep hanging out. If anyone wants to join, hit that call-in link. That link is at the top of the chat. I pinned it. It's a pinned comment. I see a couple people in here who could call in for sure. Call in and tell us what's up. Tell us what's going on.
One person had said they had like 36 skills in their system. And I'm like, why 36? Why not 100? I'm sure there's skills that they don't have listed that would be considered skill, quote unquote.
So I always think the goal is to try to minimize, like have the fewest skills that deal with the broadest spectrum possible is always my goal, I feel like. Because you could have, 10,000 skills and you may not be wrong. They may all be legitimate skills, but then at what point does it become unmanageable?
Exactly. I said some of the skills aren't listed in my list. I just covered like the basics ones for combat, like leg sweeping and, I guess takedown maneuver or something like that. Just little things. Ooh, okay. Somebody's stationed in never lived in Springfield. Okay.
Let's see. Trust me, I lived in Florida for years. They are always hiring. Oh, are they? Heck yeah. Florida is like to me, there are two places I've been that are like paradise. Florida is one, and then like Golden, Colorado is the other. I love the mountains. Golden isn't quite as close to the mountains, but Golden itself is just a beautiful town. I one time on a journey of self-discovery when I was a much younger man, when I was going through a really difficult time in my life, I got in my car and I just drove, and I didn't even know where I was going, but I started driving, and then I decided I'm driving to Colorado. So I drove to Colorado, and I went to Golden, Colorado. I like drove all night, got there, bought some tacos, ate some tacos, looked at the scenery, thought about my life and contemplated my existence. And then I turned around and came home. And it was one of the best trips I ever took. That was years ago. That was like a long time ago. I love to visit Florida. Good for photography and beach shoots with models. Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
And just don't go south of the Keys because those models are going to be naked.
Uh-oh.
I'm allowed to say that, okay, right? In YouTube?
I think so, yeah. As long as you don't show pictures, I think you're fine.
No, I'm not a visual person.
At least compared to the beach in Los Angeles. So, William, do you think the beach in Los Angeles is nicer than the beach in Florida? Because I've never been to the beach, and I've never been to California. I would like to go someday, but I've never been there. I feel like California would be my kind of place, other than the high cost of living. I feel like that's the only thing about California that might make me think, I don't know, that might be a deal breaker because I'm kind of a thrifty person. Like, so here's the thing about me. I'd say cold compared to what people say about Florida. Oh, really? Interesting.
I'd say it's drier there too, probably.
More dry in California.
Yeah, there's higher humidity here because we're basically a swamp.
So here's another thing about me, and this is just something that is. Oh, wait a minute. Mr. Vincent says Florida Beach is way better than Cali. Are they really? Okay, this makes me feel better because I really love Florida. I was thinking, what if California is better? But it doesn't. From what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like California is better. It sounds like it's different. Maybe a little colder. I don't like the cold. So here's the thing about me. I have a really I just have this, I'm just solid framed in my mind about this, just solid framed. I do not like spending a lot of money eating out, right? Hey, William, how's it going? So in my mind, I think there's a certain ceiling of what I want to pay, even eating out fancy food. And then beyond that, it's just a diminishing returns. The food can only be so good and then is justified by an expense. Like, so for example, if I go out to eat, if me and another person go out to eat and it costs us like $200, I think to myself, okay, like if that was a fancy meal, it's worth it. But anything beyond that starts to me to seem ridiculous and a point of diminishing returns. It's just something I'm like, I just have zero interest in spending more going out to eat, I feel like, than like $100. And my favorite way to go out to eat is to go out to eat and eat like, takeout, like Chinese takeout or a good burger or a good steak. And that's like plenty good enough for me. And anything fancier, well, crab is really good and lobster is really good. Those
so
things.
What are your thoughts on a buffet then?
So I like a buffet. I think buffets are awesome. I think.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello,
how's it
William.
going, William?
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I don't have a camera today. I used to yesterday for a commercial shoot, and I haven't locked that bit back into place yet.
That's all right. That's all right. But yeah, no, I like a good buffet, but I will say that like these days, I don't eat that much. Like when I was like in my 20s, I would just destroy a buffet, I feel like. But now, like I don't eat as much nearly at a meal. So if I go to a buffet, I kind of think, well, it's going to be really good, but I almost may as well go somewhere where I can kind of just like order what I want and just be done with it kind of thing. It's kind of how I feel about it. But it's fun to go to a buffet that has a lot of variety of stuff and you can get like a bunch of different things. It's really fun. William, what is on your mind? What would you like to talk about?
No, nothing. I was just jumping in the bandwagon here, talking about what y'all were talking about.
You said you had some thoughts about. You said a little while ago you had some thoughts about here is deep thoughts. I could go for hours on this. I think we were talking about happiness and the
Oh god.
Tell us your thoughts about happiness.
Happiness.
The different stages of enlightenment. Yes.
Oh goodness, I don't know. I'd probably turn to the darker side on that one.
Hey, that's okay. We have the spectrum. We have the dark and the light. If you don't want to talk about that, that's okay. But I would love to.
No, I do believe that. I know that as far as there's to a certain amount you can choose if you can be happy or not. But circumstances and life situations that it's kind of like, oh, hey, I'm sleeping on a bed of nails, but I'm pretty happy right now. At least I'm sleeping. So, yeah. So it's kind of interesting in the sense where when we say that we can control happiness and we can make ourselves happy. I think it is true to a certain extent, but not to the point where it's a consistent thing. I think there's levels of happiness too. Like you can achieve happy for like a minute or two, but to achieve true happiness for a while, it's only a fleeting moment, right? Compared to joy. Joy is different from happiness. So, yeah, for sure, there's some cutoff point there. I don't think you can keep happiness forever because then you wouldn't know what true happiness was if you don't have the good with the bad.
That's what the last episode of season 7 of Rick and Morty is about. It's like, imagine the best case scenario. You meet the perfect person and you have the most amazing relationship. Then you watch them die. Like that's the best case, right? It's like kind of it goes in a dark, kind of direction. But like, so here's a thing that I like to think about. When you mentioned sleeping on a bed of nails, it made me think, there's a heavy lifting clause that comes with happiness. And it's about like situations. So I think of it like this, like in some situations, it actually may not be possible to be happy because there are some situations that are so bad for you, so toxic, so full of pain that you're saying, I'm going to try to be happy in this situation is actually the wrong thing to be saying. If you want to be happy in the situation, then getting out of it first is kind of like the first step before you can really be happy. Because like, for example, maybe you're a weightlifter and you think to yourself, I'm going to lift these weights. It's like, okay, so you lift some reasonable weights. It's like, yeah, it's hard, but you can do it. But then you say, I'm going to lift a school bus. And it's like, no, you're probably not. You're probably not going to be able to lift a school bus. But if you go try and you just keep telling yourself, I can lift the school bus, it's not going to do you any good. You're going to kind of get stuck in a cycle of disappointment and suffering if you try to do that. Why? Because the load is just literally too heavy. The physics of the universe will not allow it. And so I think that happiness is the same way. So if we're sleeping on a bed of nails, it's like, this is unbearably painful, right? It's like, yeah, maybe I could like find a way to grow some kind of superhuman level of like stoicism to where I can ignore the pain of the nails jabbing into my back or something. It's like, or I could find a way to escape the bed of nails, and that will make creating happiness for myself so much easier. So anyway, I call it like the heavy lifting, the heavy lifting clause. It sounds like that kind of is a direction you're kind of moving in when you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, because it's like, I've been in a lot of situations. I've lived in the streets of Los Angeles from when I was like 18, almost got murdered 3 times. And
did you really?
Yeah. I think I was like out there for about a week with like where I was like shaking and shivering, and it got down to some sickness with like high fever.
Oh.
But it gives you a different perspective, but at the same time I was not happy during that time. It wouldn't matter how hard I tried. Weirdly enough, I used to play D&D out in the streets.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's for me, it's getting that mindset to be happy. It's just hard to do sometimes, and it's just not possible because of the situation, especially if you're stressed out. What's going to happen the next day? Where am I going to be living? Am I going to have to use this trash can to hide? So yeah, I guess it's because of the way that I see it. And of course, we all have different perspectives and we see life
Well, that goes back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There, you got to have water, shelter, food, and safety before you can have the next tier up or whatever.
Yeah.
And thus, happiness is like one of them, or other people to talk to and things like that.
It is hard to cultivate happiness when you're being deprived of oxygen. It's a very, oxygen is a pretty fundamental need. So it's like, should probably have that before we try to cultivate happiness. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there has been a correlation between cyanide levels and happiness, but
I don't know much about that. But I did see the episode of what was that show? Did you guys watch that show about the what's it called? Ozark. You guys watch Ozark about the money
I haven't seen
launderer?
that show.
Yeah. I've
heard of it.
There's cyanide in that show for sure. But anyway, okay. So now here's the thing. I'm getting ready to make this book. I'm actually working on this book right now. And I posted about it. It's going to be this month's book release. And it was not planned until about 2 weeks ago. So it's like, but it's basically going to be about mental disorders and things like that, and how to run them in your TTRPG. And I can't even remember what's called. I have an actual Mind, Scars, and Madness, it's going to be called. And it's going to be, there's going to be like a whole list of like basically mental conditions, mental disorders, and then mechanics for how to run them in your game. So this is an interesting thing. I think that, and William, you kind of do this a little bit. You've actually moved in this direction with Grom in our Sunday campaign, because Grom is suffering from some things. Like he's got some mental things going on that get triggered by certain things,
Yeah.
Sure. And so that's like going in that direction. It's like, okay, we track exhaustion, right? But what about anxiety? What about depression? Like, don't D&D characters suffer from paranoia? What about delusions, paranoid delusions? So it's like, I think that that's an interesting direction to go in, and not every group is going to want to explore those things. But at the same time, if you want to go really in depth with role play, who among us doesn't deal with something, right? It's like very real. We all have our demons to a point, right? So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's like acting. When I took acting in Los Angeles and stuff, and visceral, I guess the emotions that you have is one thing to lock onto. When I teach people how to role play, especially players who want to get better at the role play, I always say, well, think about an emotion that you're good with. Anger is usually the first emotion because it's pretty easy. We usually can understand that. Yeah. And then the reason I deal with emotions is because before I get into, there's like a level of role play, I guess. Actors have to understand the ideas of having maybe these mental disorders. When I write novels and stuff, I study a lot of psychology and figure out what characters would do in certain situations. In fact, Valanthi, the character I play in your campaign on Tuesdays, I have certain aspects that I deal with in my view of the world a little bit. I bring some of those aspects, and that's how I'm able to kind of just play them through her in a safer environment through gameplay.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because there were 6 studies made and how D&D helps with certain mental disorders and especially depression, and it gives a safety environment to be able to do that. But you still have to be careful, of course, with some people who are dealing with actual things in real life who might not be able to handle that. It could be, I guess, triggering in a sense. But yeah, through acting, we would go with the emotions and try to lock with those, and then we make a character out of that basic emotion, and it helps to separate yourself from the character. That was one way to do it. And then after that, then you can start exploring like their mental stability and maybe what their background might have helped. Like when you do a script, you try to get into the character and figure out why they're acting this way and what mentality they're currently at, their mental state. And you can definitely definitely shoot it into role play.
Yeah. What do you think, Adventure Manager? Do you have any experience with these types of things in your games?
I have experienced several add-ons. Oh, somebody's commented. But with this mental health and madness add-on, that's what I'm just calling it for M&M's sake. So that's kind of what you were trying to work, I think. Okay, what's the mechanical impact? What's the difficulty increase by having this? Like on a scale of 1 to 5, maybe. So mechanical impact, I'm thinking that's like a 1 out of 5 because it's pretty easy to shove it in. It's like a almost hit extra or hidden health bar, so it doesn't interfere too much with health and brain. I mean, it's there, but it doesn't really affect how much damage I'm going to do with the great sword. So there's no impact really to most stuff. But the difficulty increase, it seems like it increases the difficulty quite a bit. Like you said, characters having a mental breakdown or, developing more, hiccups or mental issues. They developed arachnophobia. Now they can never face giant spiders ever again,
Yeah.
something like that. And that seems like it increases the difficulty quite a bit. I'd say maybe a 3 out of 5 on the difficulty increase, but the mechanical impact's low, which is good.
Yeah. I think so it's interesting. So mechanical versus role play, right? So it's like, okay, on one hand, you can put some mechanics in there to try to make that a thing. And let me show you. I'm going to show you an example here. Let me show you my example. I'm going to show you the working draft of one of my things, and we're going to see what you think. I'm going to change the screen a little bit here.
Ooh, fancy.
Have you ever read through the Ravenloft, like the Curse of Strahd?
No,
campaign?
I have not.
Sometimes they do similar stuff to that, where they will give people certain, I guess, PTSD kind of things.
Oh, really? In Ravenloft? Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look into that. But here's like a working example of one of the things I'm working on. Intrusive thoughts. This is like one of the conditions. Unwanted, distressing thoughts or mental images intrude upon the character's mind. These thoughts often feel foreign, disturbing. Oh, Herminator's joining. Hey, Herminator! Look at that. You're not at your job, or that, or you've gotten a promotion and now you're working in the air conditioning.
No, I got an early, guess early release ish.
Nice.
Just got
Heck
home.
yeah. Home for the weekend?
Yeah.
Do you get the weekend off?
Yeah, I don't have to do anything. I don't go in tomorrow.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. But anyway, so it's like these thoughts often feel foreign, disturbing, or uncontrollable despite the character's values or intentions. Common causes: psychological trauma, proximity to mind warping entities or psychic forces, cursed items or cursed knowledge, behaviors and symptoms. So this is like kind of like the role play part of it. Abrupt silence or emotional shifts during peaceful moments, avoidance of certain objects, people, or thoughts, fear of harming others even without cause. So interesting, William. This is kind of sort of similar to what Grom has going on, sort of. But then mechanics, system neutral. When confronted with downtime or peace, roll a mental resistance check. On failure, the character is distracted or shaken for a short duration. -1 to insight, perception, or social interactions. If acted upon, the thoughts may have magical consequences or become prophetic. And then there's portrayal tips. And these are also for the player. Let the character wrestle with these thoughts internally or in private roleplay scenes. Don't make the thoughts define the character. They're intrusions, not desires. Create subtle links between these thoughts and real-world threats, blurring perception. And then there's some plot hook ideas. But anyway, so that's like an example of like a listing. What do you guys think about that? Do you have any like feedback about that?
When I did it for Grom, for sure, I think like I know I gave you like things to roll.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think it gives it like a depth. As far as what do you call it? As role play goes, definitely gives that third dimension to characters if the players can role play into it. And then the mechanics, I think you do very well and you're able to keep up with it. Some players might forget about it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm always having a lot of things, and I'm kind of thinking about it in the back of my mind. But adding the mechanics of it might add a little bit extra. But role play wise, though, I think if you can make it smooth and adds that extra texture and personality and characteristic to that particular player character, I think that that would be very beneficial. And I do think that adding the mechanics is pretty fun too. I know I played around even in your campaign for Vilanthe because she hasn't been into a village or a city yet. But I was, what's it called? How do you pronounce it? Astephobia, I think.
Oh, I don't know. Let me take a look.
I think it's astephobia.
What kind of phobia are you?
Astrophobia, an intense fear of thunder and lightning. Is that
No. It's astephobia. I think it's ASTY phobia.
Oh,
I think
Fear of what?
Fear of cities and towns, villages.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's when because she hasn't been around anything, I was going to role play that whenever that happens to pop in.
Oh, interesting.
So so she definitely has. She just hasn't like told anybody, and she thinks she could probably handle it. But I figured once that would be a big thing since she's always pretty quiet and usually straight to the point and doesn't like for her character. She doesn't quit. She's pretty tactical. I don't know if I gotten that point across, but she's pretty tactical. Her emotions are pretty calm.
Yeah,
and she usually doesn't break unless she's by herself. So usually when she's talking to herself or talking to Morthil. But that was definitely going to be maybe something when she finally tries to get into the city, and then she's like, maybe I made a mistake.
It sounds like maybe a little bit like a kind of an agoraphobia type thing.
So that's the word I would have thought of.
That's a little different, though. That's a little different.
Let me see if I can find it.
Fear of cities. Agoraphobia is an anxiety disorder that causes an intense fear of being overwhelmed or unable to escape or get help. Because of fear and anxiety, people with agoraphobia often avoid new places and unfamiliar situations like large open areas and closed spaces. That's not a fear of cities, though. That's a little different.
I know there's one out there that's basically like people claustrophobia. I'm not sure.
Claustrophobia?
Like you're afraid of crowds. Crowds
Oh.
of people.
Okay, so what I can see, this has a major player impact essentially. So the players really got to agree to this before
Herbophobia,
you just drop it in there
herbophobia.
in your system.
Okay, so there's astrophobia.
Yeah.
And then there's urbanophobia.
Urbanophobia.
And then there's polisophobia, which is fear of cities. Urbanophobia is fear or extreme dislike of cities or urban environments.
Yeah, there
and
you
then
go.
there's metropolophobia, which is fear of large cities or metropolises.
I mean,
that's a lot.
Certainly,
that's a lot of
certainly
phobias.
interesting to see.
Okay, so Vilanthe
words
apparently is going to
people
go
can
through
come
all
up with.
those when she.
She's going to go through the whole spectrum, maybe.
Yeah, she's just going to go through the whole spectrum. So she's just going to be jelly.
Okay, so Juo Buzz here says, actually asked a really good question. I've never had a mental condition in any games I played or ran. Let's say the players agree it's got to come from the players. I would agree. I think if players don't want to play that kind of game, that's significant. Some players don't want to mess with that. Some players just, it's Sokka's. Oh, hey, Sokka's. Some players don't want to mess with that. They just want to fight and have HP and cast spells, right? Which is fair.
Yep.
What do you think it adds to the game? Okay, here's my answer to this. I am really interested in adding this element to games because of two reasons. Number one, for storytelling, deeper, immersive storytelling with my characters or my NPCs, villains, whatever. I think that exploring that aspect of like humanity and the working mind of humanity is really fascinating to me. And so I like it from a storytelling perspective. But secondly, I also like to explore it, kind of what we were talking about earlier. Okay, so Grom, for example, Grom has this idea about good and evil, and he's realizing that his idea is really like wrong in the sense that he thought he was being quote unquote good, but then he was literally warned by a god, hey, you're not being good, you're being evil. If you don't cut it out, you're going to go back to the hells, right? So he is like, he's having this crisis where he thought he was right about something for years and years and years. And now this literally godlike being is telling him, no, you've actually been wrong this whole time. And just like, so I have had this just relates to me personally because I have had beliefs in my life that I've had my whole life. And then one day realized, wait a minute, was I wrong about this? Was I living with this belief my whole life and it was wrong? And to me, that is like, so that's like that moment of realization is a very kind of powerful and pivotal thing. And so Grom, that's just one very specific example. Role playing him working through kind of that conflict is kind of a fun way to explore those mechanics for myself, like in proxy, in a what you might call a, it in a game, in a zone that isn't real life. So there is kind of there's a therapeutic element to it, but I wouldn't say that's the primary objective for me. The primary objective would be exploration and exploration and testing, just like testing out different ways of thinking that I probably wouldn't explore in real life in that direction. I hope that makes sense. Does anyone else?
Would you say that you'd have to almost check in with all of the players to see if that's a kind of game that they're willing to play or not? Because, like, yeah, you may have different a different opinion from someone else in the party. It's like, well, I'm just here to save the world and get loot.
Beer and pretzels, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You definitely want to, if
a
players are
more
going to do it,
story focused, more along the lines of like Lord of the Rings, where like you're okay with maybe some of the deeper elements, but you don't necessarily want to test out a pseudo real life god interaction kind of thing.
Yeah. So my
you would want to
answer,
do it organically for sure. If a player's into it, like I've had players and they organically just do it and they want to test it out themselves and play it out. But if you're going to play a game like that, yeah, all consenting players, it would be up to that because everybody wants to escape reality. They don't want to have to be playing reality in a game when it's supposed to be fun.
they're trying to go to bed and they're stressed out if they're going to be able to make their mortgage payment in game. It's like no fun. But like no, the answer I think is I would never want to force that onto a player, right? So like let's say that we were three of you were playing in one of my games. And let's say that Herminator, you were like you're kind of playing for fun, casual. You want to smash things and cast cool spells, and that's really what you want to do. And let's say that, but William wants to get really in depth. He wants to role play a character that's having paranoid delusions. It's like, okay, like William wants to explore that, super cool. But I'm not gonna like project that onto your character, Herminator, because you're not interested in that, right? Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
but I don't think that I don't think that necessarily like I think it would be very unlikely that William wanting to roleplay through that would give you a bad experience unless it was like something really specific, like that you just don't want to see or hear or deal with. Like, so let's say, for example,
you should just be open to being like, one person may not want to go through that in game with their character, so maybe be cognizant and aware that maybe you don't spend as much time as you might have otherwise on that player that wants to do that. It's like, kind of if you would spend, say, an hour, if there was no um perceived time limit by any player, like, oh, I'm going to spend an hour on this. But if one of the players isn't really into that, maybe you don't spend an hour on it and just try to give the player that wants to go through that their chance to go through it, but don't miss out on other players and their um, desires for the
Yeah.
game.
In other words, like letting a player take up a bunch of spotlight time because they want to do this like thing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and I guess maybe
Yeah.
you could have a conversation with that character, be like the way the story's going, like yeah, the spotlight may be a little heavy on this character, but in following sessions, or maybe you just got done with a spotlight for that character. It's like, okay, you had your time in the spotlight. You may not like this, but let's have him have his time in the spotlight, and just, but I think just being aware of the give and take. And if everybody's really into it, then yeah, go for it as much as you can. Um, one thought I had, I don't know if this is maybe tying a little too much of the video you released this morning about drama. Sometimes I feel that sometimes there's too much drama in some stories. It's like, oh, I'm going to purposefully be slightly antagonistic to this player because that's going to make a cool drama addition to the story. And is like, oh, we're going to go through this whole thing of, like, we're going to fight about this, and then we're going to be begrudging allies, and then we'll work through it. And it's like, some of it's like a little, like, it's not as organic, I feel. And I feel sometimes that too much drama for the sake of drama is not fun. But maybe that's just
Yeah.
how I play. I'm more into the Lord of the Rings. There's a big evil at the end of the road, and yeah, but
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. And so when you say that, here's what I think. I think to myself, like, okay, well, like, what would be the point of projecting drama onto the game? Well, the point would only be to give player characters the chance to like work with that to further their stories, because the story is about the player characters. They're the main characters. So I guess I feel like I test drama with players, and then if they just kind of like don't bite, or they're not interested, or they don't interact with it, then I just like pull it back. It's like, oh, okay, this is not the
okay,
direction they want to go in. That's how I usually approach it, because I always try to think, what do these characters want to do with their story? And then try to facilitate the best like creative environment for like where they want to go. I guess I feel like that's the direction
yeah.
I go.
I guess um I've seen sometimes, maybe I really enjoyed the first campaign of Critical Role.
Mhm.
As they've gone on, I feel like this last campaign was a little bit more drama for the sake of drama, because they wanted to be dramatic, and it didn't really make for a good story. So I feel like when you add drama and it doesn't add to the story, then it really is a takeaway. But some of the dramatic moments of campaign one, of certain characters being at death's door and making bargains with certain other entities or players, like, it moved the story on, and there were things that worked, and it wasn't just like, they may have a campaign wrap up, or after their streaming they have a discussion, and they all but say, like, oh, well, I wanted to do this because I thought it would be cool to interject this point of drama. I'm like, that's not a good reason to do that. And, if you're just doing it because you want to be a, pardon my French, turd about playing your character that way, then that's not a good reason to interject a drama. But
That dreaded
sorry, I'm
word, player
ranting.
agency, and everything.
Yeah. All
Absolutely.
Well,
right.
I
That's
think you
my
definitely have
rant on
to
drama.
fine tune it. Like as like when I writing novels, sometimes you can tell the difference between a new writer and an old writer, because even in like even in movies, you have theater movies. Sometimes it gets through though, but like you have your B-rated movies, and then you can tell the difference between B-rated movies and the ones that make it to theaters. Sometimes theaters do the same thing though. I have seen like over dramatic, like the Airbender, the very first one. But they add a lot of that drama that doesn't necessarily need to be there, or they over dramatize stuff. And there's a big difference between acting for the screen and acting for theater. In theater, usually you're going to over dramatize, and we could tell the people who had a background in theater when they were coming into acting class for the screen, because they would over dramatize everything. And it's like, no, we don't need over dramatization. We need to kind of calibrate that to be a little bit more authentic and get into the character. In novels, it's the same thing. You can make it too over dramatic for certain scenes, which doesn't need to be there, and it doesn't make sense because you didn't fine tune the little screw. Like you have to like go in there and kind of like you're twisting the screwdriver to get that screw just right and build enough tension with the spring. And if you don't do it right, when it pops, it's going to pop in the wrong time. So role play. So you have your theater, then you have your novels, and then you have all the way down to where role playing now is a new thing to watch. And for role players, if you just jump in there and like with Grom, I was hoping to add Grom because he did go to the hells. He died. And I hope that made sense to bring him back and gave him those mental disorders, in a sense, mental stress. And it should make sense because he went to the hells. If you come back and you have memories of that, then don't have nothing to like to say. And when you're writing novels, if you don't have nothing to jump back into and you just forget it and it never happens, then it's like, well, it also falls flat with that too. But if you go too much into the drama, then it doesn't make sense. Kind of like we did on Tuesday for Valanthe when everybody disappeared, and I think Hector and Luna just went about talking about everything very normal, which that should have been a little bit higher stressed situation for me. So that's why Valanthe was like, what the heck happened? Why is everybody acting so normal here? And I guess Lado was the only one who play acted that. You had to jump back to that scene and be like, okay, we have to make this scene matter. And I think that's I've watched Critical Role some episodes I didn't watch because I was like, okay, come on. It is a little bit too much drama now. I just want to get to the action now. Because there is a thing when you like for novels, if you do it too much, people get tired of the drama as well. I forgot what it's called, but and even for TV shows or whatever, eventually there's just too much drama. You need breathing room.
Desensitized.
Yeah, you become desensitized to it. So you need a little bit of breathing room, especially in role play as well. You got to have your on
I
and
think
off.
the big thing for me that like I still like to watch Critical Role because there are those moments that I wait for the the high intensity combat or just to see where the story eventually goes. But there was one character in campaign 2 that was chaos incarnate, and it was entertaining. It was a fresh take because campaign 1 was a little serious, so they added a little bit of brevity. But then more than half of the cast for campaign 3 wanted to be chaotic, and it just ended up being too much chaos. And it was
Yeah.
like, oh, that was funny the last time, let's all do it. And it's like, no, people are, there's different YouTube videos of people being like, why is this campaign all over the place? There's no
Rhyme or reason.
there's no consequences for their actions, different things. And it's like, yeah, a little bit of chaos is okay, but then when everyone's being chaotic, and that's where I think some of the like I could tell that they at the table were enjoying it. They were having fun. They're doing their thing. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. But when you're streaming for an audience of I don't know what their current YouTube subscriber count is, 4 million, 2 million or something. When you are doing something for an audience, you really need to take the audience into consideration. And if your audience isn't enjoying it, then they're not going to stick around for a lot, because and I think that's where some of the recent stuff, maybe if I'm if I'm okay to change subjects a little, that's where some of the recent Disney and Star Wars and all the Disney, the new Snow White movie that just came out, that in my opinion, Disney and Star Wars is not in touch with their audience, and they're making what they want to, and they're surprised when nobody wants to watch it
Oh
or
yeah.
calls it bad.
Well, for sure, like that's also another point I was going to bring up is like, see, Critical Role is playing for the audience compared to people who play for themselves. You can be all over the place, but um, people who are trying, because there's a big difference between what do you call it? Um, I wanted to make a streaming video that was similar to Critical Role, but trying to find the players that are good enough RPers to play for the audience and understand they're going to play for the audience to bring viewership in is completely different than just playing for fun. When you're playing for fun, playing with I do pro games, so they're usually pretty good at not keeping everything too chaotic because everybody wants to have fun. But as far as another level of it, like Critical Role, playing for the audience, you definitely have to follow some sort of, and I don't know if like Mercer does that. I know he has a whole plot line or idea of what he sees in the end game. And of course they're actors as well, voice actors, but I can definitely see why like I watched a few, but yeah, there were certain things that I was like, I'm not interested in that. I just want to see. I'll move on past that one, and I would wait like weeks before I would go back and see if, okay, do I need to skip this episode or not?
Yeah.
Because I'm not really.
I feel like, and then also they've got so many hours of stuff out that it's like there's been times where I've tuned in for an episode. Like I watch pretty much within a day or two of them uploading an episode. There's been times where I'm like, really? You guys talked to one person at a shop, you went shopping, and you maybe started down the road to your next objective. Like nothing happened in this 4.5 hours of you just BSing with each other at the table. Like,
I have a
and
question, Herminator. Are there any like streaming YouTubers whose games you kind of think, oh, they're doing it right, like it's on point, that you really enjoy? Like, or do you have
high
an example?
rollers. I
Oh,
think
wait,
high rollers and more current is a little better on keeping to the point where they there are times where maybe they linger a little on certain aspects, but there is stuff happening. Like they may be in a long RP session of talking with a king or talking with an important person and planning something or figuring out information about what is going on in the world. Um, they do it on 5 p.m. UK GMT or something.
gotcha.
Usually ends
Yeah,
up usually ends up coming for me on East Coast time. It usually comes out around 1 o'clock on Sundays. So I guess for you in Central it would be noon. Um,
I'll have to check them out. I've never heard of them
yeah.
before, actually. I
Mark
just
Humes is
subscribe.
their DM.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we are coming up on 2 o'clock. I want to give a huge shout out to all of our Ko-Fi supporters. Thank you so much to Solstice, to David, our partner level Ko-Fi supporters, and Craig, our gold level Ko-Fi supporter. Thank you so much for, supporting the channel, for keeping the awesome stuff going on here at GM Philosophy in the Discord, here on the YouTube, and on email. Here at GM Philosophy, the goal is to empower game masters to run better games. And so all of our content, all of our events, they're all centered on helping to achieve that objective. And with that being said, I think that we're going to wrap this one up for the day. Thank you all for joining us, Herminator, Adventure Manager, and William. Thank you so much for joining me on the call and hanging out with me.
I didn't get to say too much. Oh, well.
Would you like to make our closing statement? You can make our closing statement. That'd be awesome.
Maybe we should have a phrase of the day or a word of the day at the end. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. You should make it. What is today's phrase of the day?
Critical Role. That'll work. As you were talking about
roll. Critical Role.
Well, what was your best most epic Critical
yet?
Role? There you go.
What was the best episode of Critical Role?
No, your best Critical Role in your game, or guess whatever. Like mine was a guy,
best nat 20.
riding to climb on top of a dragon when it was trying to fly away. That was like he rolled like a nat 20 on his dex or whatever, and he's like landed on the back of the dragon.
I one time had an epic level monk try to throw. He had these like maneuvers, and one of his maneuvers is he could throw a creature that was like larger than him. And he was like, but he was epic level. He was 20th level. And it was the final boss fight. And he was fighting a legendary dragon, basically. And not legendary, ancient, like an ancient red dragon, basically. And he was like, can I try to throw the dragon? And I was like, listen, it's basically impossible. You would literally need to roll 2 nat 20s in a row to throw the dragon. He's like, can I try? It's like, sure. And he did it. He rolled 2 nat 20s in a row. And he literally threw the dragon on the ground. That's the craziest critical I've ever seen in my games.
I guess my most recent, I'm actually getting ready in about 3.5 hours to run for my once a month campaign players for my church. They were up against a wizard. I think they were like 2nd or 3rd level, and the cleric cast guiding bolt and like just completely blasted way past the health point that he might have been at like 11 hit points, and because she rolled a nat 20, I did max plus dice roll, and she rolled like 15 or something. I was like, yep, he's down. And they called it like, I think they're even referencing it in character in later sessions of like yeah, what was that, like that hand blast you did? They're basically trying to describe the Kamehameha, and it's like it's just guiding bolt, but yeah, it was a big hit, and it just downed the guy in one hit, and I was like, okay, he's unconscious, or he's at 1 hit point, because I needed to start the like, oh, you got him to 0, cue cutscene. That's been my most recent.
Hey, yeah, it may have just been a guiding bolt, but a well placed guiding bolt is sometimes all you need to get the job done.
Yeah. now that cleric in the party is considered the big hitter because she's got the hand cannon.
Heck,
the hand of God.
How about you, William? Do you have an awesome critical story?
Oh gosh, I have so many criticals that's happened in my games. I guess I'll just say the most recent one. It was and I don't know because they're criticals, but this guy just has a strange probability with his dice. One time, I think he rolled 5 11s, and anyway, he went up against one of my 7 brides in my world, and they're like what I call paragon characters, which are like the toughest of the tough. Mm-hmm. Not technically meant to be fought, hopefully to be talked to, but if anybody wants to get a chance at them, they can. So he went up against them, and I think he rolled like 3 criticals.
Oh wow.
and 3 criticals, and actually brought her hit points down under the hundreds. And I was like, holy Jesus, man. He was a paladin, but I was like,
It's all those smites.
yeah. I was
If it
like,
bleeds,
good
we can
God.
kill it.
So those were the most epic ones. And I was like, wow, yeah, you did something that was impossible there, dude. So he lost, but yeah, it was an interesting fight. I was like, oh my God, that completely got me not the outcome I was thinking at first.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everyone, so much. I will see you all very soon. Tomorrow morning, we will be live streaming the next episode of Good Morning Game Masters, talking about some controversial topic. I'm not actually sure what the topic is yet. I think we have a poll going to determine it in the Discord. But anyway,
Honestly, I haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, so we can live chat again? That'd be fun.
I don't think we're doing call-ins on the Saturday morning show. I think it's just the 3 of us talking about it. I think unless John or Kelf want to change it. But usually right now, the only show I do call-ins on is this Friday show. It's like my dedicated call-in show, which I really like. And then I live stream on Monday mornings to do news, like weekly news. But I don't usually do call-ins on that show either. It's just me talking about the news and answering questions and talking about upcoming events. Do you like the call-in segments? Do you think they're fun?
Oh yeah, you get more of that context and everything too. Like anything strange I might say is like, well, at least is how he said it, you know.
Maybe I should do a night, like a evening call-in show, like a longer one, because coming up pretty soon, I'll have some more time at nights. I could do stuff that might be fun doing, like, because right now my call-in show is at 1 p.m., which is kind of a weird time. But it's because when I started the channel, that was like the time that worked best for me. But coming up here pretty soon, I could probably do it in the evenings. So that'd be kind of cool.
Maybe there's probably still a lot of people who are at work right now.
Maybe you could do like at the very least, like a monthly evening call-in.
Yeah, something like that. Do like a call-in party, monthly call-in party.
The party.
Maybe we could do a call-in rotating game where I just start a live stream and I run a session, and then the players are just whoever calls in, and then I give them character sheets. Maybe that could be fun.
Wouldn't that
I don't remember who did that,
West
but he
Marches?
basically.
Yeah. And then if a player drops
out,
I'll think about that. I might do it. It'd be funny. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for hanging out.
Talk to you later.
Take care.